The opinions expressed on this program are those of the program hosts and their guests and are not necessarily those of WSTU, St. Mary's Episcopal Church, and Temple Beit Chaim. Products that may be mentioned are not necessarily intended as an endorsement. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited. And now, WSTU presents A Priest and a Rabbi. Call in with questions and comments at 220-9788. 220-WSTU. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to another exciting hour of A Priest and a Rabbi. My name is Father Christian from St. Mary's Episcopal Church, and next to me is the best good-looking rabbi you have ever seen this side of the Jordan River. It is Rabbi Matthew Durbin from Temple Beit Chaim. Oh, Rabbi, you look good.
It's Dress Down Fridays today, isn't it?
Well, it is just because I was preparing for this show to the very last minute. Didn't have time to throw on my clericals. Threw on a Cavaliers hat.
I mean, you threw on a hat.
I threw on a Cleveland Cavaliers hat.
You can see that.
Yeah. So we're not like your Toronto Raptors, but very, very, very different. But now the border's closed. We won't be able to play games with your Toronto Raptors for a while, but we'll get there. It's life in the time of Corona. So listen, man, how you feeling? How are your kids? Everyone doing well? No one freaking out? You know, the temple's going?
We're going.
Yeah, okay. So
let me go back to a brief experience last night. So I'm for my middle child, we decided to buy her a bike in lieu of her birthday's next Saturday. We had plans to go to Disney and kind of do it all up. And of course, as we know, the entire world is shutting down. So we had to revamp plans. So my middle child is very active and really wanted a bicycle. So we bought her a bike and, no training wheels. And after the first day, she got very frustrated, threw the bike down, was like, this is stupid. I can't do this. I'm never going to learn. And I said, just give it time. You'll see. One more day. And the next day she got it like that. So she's running around the neighborhood on her bike. And so yesterday afternoon, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take the plunge. The last time I had a bike, I was 14 years old. I had locked it up in we call it junior high. I guess it's like middle school here. And as at lunchtime, I went out. We were out with friends, and I see this guy riding a bike that looked a little wobbly. And I thought to myself, man, that bike looks really familiar, but that's not mine because I chained it up. And of course, I go, and my bike is gone. So that was episode one. A year later, I had a bike, put it in the front yard in my house, and it was stolen literally as I went in to go get a glass of water and come back. So I haven't had a bike in probably like 25 to 26, 27 years. Never had it. So yesterday, I took the big plunge. I bought myself a bike yesterday, trying to be a little bit healthier and really trying to be active. And it was really nice. I did the 1.5 mile loop around my neighborhood with my middle child, just her and I, which was really exciting. But that
was interesting. Mixture of objects and subjects there. Her and I. What are you, Halsey?
Coffee hasn't set in yet. So last night, two of my kids passed out relatively early. So we decided to watch like a family movie. So my wife goes, well, what about that movie, Keeping the Faith? So I said, yeah, why not? Sure, great. So, my oldest and kind of sat on the couch, distanced ourselves 6 feet, and watch this movie. And my oldest child said, Dad, this reminds me of you and Father Anderson. Has Father Anderson seen the movie? So then, of course, I texted you last night to say, have you seen the movie? And of course, your response was, you ask me this every single time we meet. And just, at the end of the movie, my oldest looks at me and she goes, Dad, that's exactly what you and Father Anderson do, isn't it? You guys go out in the community and you build bridges, you build community. How amazing.
Which daughter is this?
My oldest, Delny. So I thought it was really neat for those that haven't seen it with Ben Stiller and Edward Norton. Great film, really heartwarming. If you do decide to watch it with young children, the only caveat I do have is that there are a couple scenes you might want to fast forward through.
Are they love scenes?
They are.
Right.
But they're endearing.
But they're endearing love scenes.
They're endearing love scenes.
If they happen to see it, it's more about love, not about hanky panky.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So that's the first time you ever heard a rabbi and a priest
supporting
love scenes for your children to watch.
My favorite is, so my daughter says, for those that haven't seen the movie, there's I don't want to ruin it, but there's a part in the movie where so priest, rabbi, they grew up as friends. They have the third, which is a girl, Jenna Elfman, who when she gets, I think it's like 8th or 9th grade, her parents move out to California. They're in New York. And then they reconnect like 20, 30 years later. She's not Jewish. Obviously, the rabbi's Jewish. And then there is the Catholic priest. And they all fall in love with her. And there's a scene in the movie where the rabbi breaks up with her because she's not Jewish and because he just feels with his own family, his mother really disowned one of his siblings because he married somebody that wasn't Jewish. And she's sitting in the hospital bed and she said, "I made a big mistake. Don't make the same mistake." And then there's this part where my daughter looks at me and she goes, "Dad, if this happened to me, would you be upset with me?" And, my heart breaks a little bit because, part of me says, look, I am a very firm believer in, trying to keep it within the faith, trying to marry, and trying to be happy.
Can we just interject real quickly? Can we go back to the episode? There was a show of A Priest and a Rabbi where we had our very progressive, open-minded rabbi, as we've talked about race, we talked about sexual identity and gender, et cetera, et cetera. But when it came to marrying someone, he must be Jewish. He can't be of another religion.
Or convertible.
So the open mind kind of closed a little bit.
No, it's not the open mind closes. I think as a progressive rabbi, I think that there are things within the realm of Judaism that we keep for ourselves. I think that
so that's closing it up a bit. That's not open.
No, because the way
you literally just closed the circle.
No.
Open mind, you're open to other movement, you're open to new ideas. And I'm just calling you out. You call me out on things. I'm calling you out on things.
So my philosophy is, look, especially when it comes to interfaith weddings, I perform them.
But not for your own child.
No, because what I would say to my own child, which I said to her last night, is if you happen to fall in love with somebody that is not Jewish, I hope and I expect that the one to whom you marry will learn about your faith and will accept it and will embrace it. And I hope that you will raise a Jewish household and a Jewish family.
But if she falls in love with my son at some point and she says this Jesus thing is okay, you are going to lose your absolute.
This is where it gets.
You're going to lose your mind.
This is where it gets interesting.
You will lose your mind.
So my oldest had said to me last night. She said, Dad, don't worry about me. I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, well, if I meet somebody that's not Jewish and I fall in love with them, don't worry, Dad. I'll make them convert. I'll make them Jewish. And I said, well, that takes time and, they need to embrace it. And I don't want them doing it just for you. I want them to do it because they really feel a strong connection. And she goes, you don't got to worry about me, Dad. You got to worry about the other two. but it's
if I told you that about my own children, you would freak out. If I said to my kid was saying, don't worry, Dad, she's going to be Christian. I will convert her. You'll be like, here we are again, the Crusades. Here are the Crusades happening once again.
Then it will be a priest's son and a rabbi's daughter.
All right, so let's get on with the show here. So at the beginning of the show, we always like to have fun with just our goings on and stuff like that. So we today want to talk about all the influence that COVID-19 is having upon houses of worship, with all the influence that's happening. I'm sure the last thing you want to see online anymore is another house of worship saying, we're live streaming, we're going online, because it's probably everyone saying that now, right? We're going live. But there's a lot of changes that are happening and religious leaders have to be on top of their game to know how to deal with this new world. What is the church? What is the temple? what is the mosque going to look like when this is all said and done? What are the last what we want to talk about today? What are the effects upon how we do religion, how we form community, how we just do pastoral care? Because will there be some lasting effects here? And let's not put a judgment on it. Maybe some of it will be, who knows? If we believe in a really good and gracious God, maybe it's going to be all really good for religion.
It's an amazing image. I don't know if you saw it this morning. I had a colleague of mine post something that was from the Western Wall in Jerusalem. And of course, Israel is 7 hours ahead. So it was, mid-afternoon for them. And the piazza, the area of the Western Wall itself, was completely empty. And now, of course, please be aware, obviously, Israel is under lockdown as well. The government, the Israeli health department has said nobody is to leave. But regardless of that, just see the image of the Western Wall, of the praying wall, empty.
Sure.
I have never in my life ever seen that wall devoid of people.
I mean, there could be some beauty in that, to just let it sit and let the prayer sit, and just in the peace and the quiet and the solitude of it. The pictures of Venice coming out, where now you could see the bottom of the water. I've been to Venice in Italy. You can never see that, right? Yeah. But the pollution is down. There's not the boats in there. Dolphins are swimming up and you swimming through the canals in Venice. That's never happened, right? China, the air pollution, the smog is starting to dissipate. It shows you just hopefully there's one environmental impact of this, because as people of faith, environmental care should be always at the forefront of what we do to care for God's creation. And we can see that when we just start to chill out and settle down and just focus on one another and be in relationship with one another in our homes and not be so busy doing things out there, the sky begins to clear up, the air starts to get better, the water looks cleaner.
Well, I think that's just it too. I read a meme this morning that said, given obviously this is very devastating and this is very challenging times and extraordinary times that we live in, that the earth is actually healing itself, because we're not driving as much. We're not using as much gas. We're not using as much resources, because we're all pretty much quarantined at home.
God said, if you're not going to do the Paris Accord, I'm going to do it my own self. I am going to clean this place up. I mean, it is kind of a Sabbath. It's sort of like the earth is fasting. The earth is fasting from humans for a while and long. Now, and listen, you might want to call and you're very offended by all these views, because you're saying there's people who are hurting right now because of all this. I get it. I know they are, but we have to look at the full picture as well. Like where is the silver lining in all this? What good and what is God up to in all this? And I think there are a lot of good things that are coming out of this. This is not to take away from the extreme suffering that many people are dealing with, economically, physically, emotionally, psychologically. There's a lot of isolation. So the number here is 772-220-9788. 772-220-9788. Our topic today is, where is religion? What is religion going to look like when this is all said and done, particularly in America? Because, Rabbi, you and I have talked about this a lot. We are already leaning in a direction as Americans into a place of, we like to kind of do it ourselves. We like to be very independent of one another. We like to have smaller groups, not bigger groups. Groupism has faded. Individualism has continually to rise, probably post-revolution. So now from a house of worship standpoint, where you and I are doing all the dog and pony shows to get people in the space, now we have this season we're in where people are not even allowed to come into the space, and we're trying to direct them to do things online or on telephones, whatever. Is there any kind of concern for you that when it's all said and done, that people are going to be like, you know what? I kind of like this. I get to wake up in my own house. I can turn and watch the rabbi on the internet, watch what I need. I can tap out, maybe wave at some people digitally, send them a text message, and I go on with my life. Is there any concern over that? Or you think like, no way, when this is all said and done, people are going to be so hungry for a community. They'll be beating the doors down of the temple.
I think in some way it's opened the doors to a whole variety of different opportunities.
Sure.
Right. I mean, we could decide in an hour from now that, you and I want to do a special like Facebook Live, come meet the priest and the rabbi in the radio show. We could do that immediately. And for those who wish to tune in can tune in. I mean, I think when we look at how will religion change, I think it's the same question we had when video streaming became available. Well, does that mean that I no longer have to go to church, or I no longer have to go to the synagogue, because I can just view it from my home? I don't have to make that journey to that point because it's already available. I think that there is some danger. I think that when we look at it from a community standpoint, there is always strength in community coming together. I think our challenge today is, what does that look like? because there are people that are fearful of coming into our communities. There are fearful of people who want to take great care, but at the same time, I mean, look, this is a serious pandemic. I mean, we read the news. We know that there are spring breakers who refuse to acknowledge the severity of what's going on and say, well, if I get it, I'll be sick for a few days. It's not sick for a few days. Take the call. Listen to what's going on.
But they might just be sick for a few days because they're 22 and have an immune system. It's just if they come in contact with spread to someone who has respiratory issues, congratulations, you just put their life in jeopardy.
And I think from a religious and moral perspective, I think that's why we as communities are saying, please, and I don't like the term social distancing because I think it's actually a terrible word. Use physical distancing.
Because it's 2 words.
Well, because look, social distancing, if you were to say physical distancing, let's just physically distance ourselves away from others to protect ourselves and others. There's a difference between, because I think we fall into the danger of social distancing, social isolationism. And I think that the key is try and be as aware, the common adage that's been floating around the last couple of days is, approach every moment and every day as if you yourself have it.
Yeah.
So you know what? I'm going to distance myself physically, not socially.
And so the key for you today during the show is not to lick the microphone again. Because if you want to act like that you have it, that won't be good for the next radio show.
That's why you and I are 5-6 feet apart.
Yeah. So last show,
maybe religiously, maybe
we are religiously 5 or 6 feet apart, and also literally. But if you remember last episode, that the rabbi got so into the show that his tongue came out and licked the microphone somehow, and he had a moment of great fear and didn't know what to do. And I was like, dude, you can just, I was laughing on the air so badly. So anyways, but our wonderful producer let us know that it was wiped down with Lysol, so you wouldn't have to worry about licking the microphone. Okay, so here's a question for you, Rabuni. And here we are in the air at 772-220-9788. If you're catching us on 1450 AM or listening to us on the internet, call in to see if what are your concerns about long-term effects that COVID-19 will have upon your house of worship that you're a part of. So, Rabbi,
but I think the challenge is the uncertainty, right? At least, and please know I'm not trying to minimize this at all, but when a hurricane is barreling down on the shores of Florida, right? We know that there is an end time, relatively an end time.
And then there's a cleanup, and you have to take the months after that to rebuild.
Absolutely. With this, there's no end time. We don't know. And I think that, at least for me, that's the unsettling part. How long is this going to manifest itself? How long are we going to keep continuing? Are we going to shut down completely? We have a preschool. We have activities and programs at the temple. We're trying to move and we'll be moving towards, this digital and online experience. But for how long?
Right. So here we go. To me, it feels like God is saying to us, my beloved temple, my beloved church, my beloved mosques, you all are usually at least 50 years behind of the rest of the movement of civilization when it comes to technology. You are historic. You're historic institutions of faith. And with that, you hold on to tradition very well, but sometimes you miss the boat on what's happening with current trends. And so, and God is saying, there are so many people seeking for answers. They're searching for answers. They're searching for purpose and meaning, and probably these things. They're searching for me, and they're not coming to your house of worship. They're going to go to YouTube and say, how do I pray? They're going to jump on Twitter. They're going to jump on social media. They're going to be asking these questions, or not going anywhere, but they'll probably be mostly on this digital landscape. And some churches have done a really good job. Some religious organizations have done a very good job of how to creatively enter into that landscape. But most have not. Well, now we got to. And my hope is that the long-term effect of this is that it's going to be, we're in the desert right now. We are the Israelites trying to find Cana. But while we're in the desert, to trust that God is going to be raining down the manna on top of us that we're going to need to do, because we're going to feel like foreigners right now. We're not natives to this land as people. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I think I'm somewhat savvy, but not really savvy when it comes to technology. And so there's people who.
So if you say you're not savvy, I shudder to think what I am. Because I know. Look, one of the challenges that from a personal perspective is I am not technologically savvy. I don't know the first thing about it, and I've tried to learn.
Says the man with the radio show.
Well, I speak into a microphone.
You lick a microphone.
Our producer Evan does all this stuff with it. It's just my voice. It's relatively easy. But I think with technology of, everyone is now familiar with the company Zoom and everything else of Zoom meetings and online stuff with live Facebook and whatever it may be, that I think for me, it's been really challenging because I don't know the inner workings of it to be able to make it successful.
And so now God is saying, all right, Rabbi, let's go enlist the people, which was great. Right before we went on our show, the previous show before us was Dan Bird and Becca Bird talking about Speak Life to Musical, right? And so they're over at Christ Fellowship. And as they leave, they turn to both you and I and say, just so you know, we can probably use Christ Fellowship Studio. Right. So we can go in there, use their technology, use their studio, use their cameras. And I think that's a really cool thing that happens in this time in the Love of Cole era that we're in right now, where people will say, hey, why don't you come on over to our big old church and use our AV equipment? And I bet there'll be someone there and say, Rabbi, we'll have to show you how to do all this. He told us about another studio down the road that might be open to us that we can use for our houses of worship to get out our message. So it's going to open up a lot of new doors. We have the time to do it right now. We have the excuse to do it right now. A lot of other things got canceled. So it's going to be rough. I think we'll be in the desert complaining. We're going to be looking over our shoulder, looking back at Egypt, saying, I just want to go back to how life was. But God is saying, no. I got some, like Moses, I'm going to give you a staff. I'm going to have you tap some rocks and water is going to come gushing out. I'm going to tap this rock for you. So here's the good news about technology. You can learn anything on YouTube. Right? You just say how to blankety blank blank. And there's over 1,000 videos of people who have made self-help videos or how-to videos. So we're going to learn, man. And so there's one, I think we're going to grow technologically speaking. I think it's going to be an awesome thing. I think we'll probably change our budgets in the future that we'll probably want to invest more in this. My hope is that we don't just connect. This is my hope for St. Mary's Episcopal Church, that we're not just doing this to connect with our flock, because we're not going to, because there's going to be a lot of people in my flock who just don't go on social media. They're not going to do it. We're going to miss them completely. And we have to figure out different ways. We have to go and call them. We have to send letters to them.
But I wonder too, how much of this is, and again, I'm not trying to minimize it, but how much of it is a novelty? Oh, I can access all of this now online.
Right.
Well, when that novelty wears out,
oh yeah,
what happens?
I think
do we go back to community when we're allowed and it's safe to go back to communities, or do we rely back on, well, this has been cool. Well, this is now the new normal.
But do you think, I'll take a step even before that, will the novelty of online wear off just in the next couple of weeks? Will people just grow tired of it if we don't do it well, or if it's not accessible? People, I don't want to go online and watch Father Christian again doing a right to Eucharist online. That's boring. Like I want to be there, and if I can't be there, we see this during Irma. We take our services and our prayer times online, and for the times when it's really crazy out there, when we think this hurricane's about to send us to kingdom come, the traffic online is huge. And then a couple of days afterwards, it just starts to simmer and simmer and simmer, and it just kind of dies out. And you get your normal people who expect it, like 20 or 30 people are going to tune in. I wonder if we don't develop and innovate and come up with really creative ways with camera work, with engaging with people. I think that's what's going to have to happen. We can't just live stream. We have to do creative things and use Zoom to do breakout groups and say, hey, I'm going to do, you can get like 8 or 9 people and say, hey, I'm going to do a group over here, do some Hebrew Bible study. And maybe you do multiple ones. You have to raise up leaders who will lead different things. I don't think a live stream is going to cut it, because the novelty, I think we're already seeing it at the church, is wearing off. It's going to have to be something more intimate and something that can really allow people to engage personally, and so they can have a camera on them as well. And the people who don't have cameras on their computers at home, we'll have to figure out telephonically, how do we do this? How do we get people on conference calls? But it can't just be you and me. We're going to have to raise up leaders and tap other leaders who have the passion for this. And then if they have the passion, they have no idea how to use this stuff, and be like, okay, you got to jump on YouTube, teach yourself, or start doing some workshops. It's going to be some growing pains. So, all right, we are going to take a break here at WSTU. And if you're just tuning in to this about where is religion going to go after Corona, you can catch the whole first episode over on our podcast, A Priest and A Rabbi podcast, the one with the better looking guys on the cover. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get into how is this going to affect the church and the temple financially. We'll be right back in just a second. All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to the second part of A Priest and a Rabbi. I am Father Christian Anderson here from St. Mary's Episcopal Church. And next to me is the best good-looking rabbi you've ever seen, Rabbi Matthew Durbin of Temple Bet Hayam. We are continuing our conversation of as the church and the temple is affected by this new world we live in of the digital age, and the changes that it makes to our way we do pastoral care, that we do worship, that we do formation, that we just do basic meetings where the rabbi's got to meet with his executive council. I got to meet with my vestry. Everyone's got to get on Zoom, whether they like it or not. So we talked about that in the first half, and what will that look like when this is all said and done? Will this change the body, the organism known as, God's home of worship? But let's first jump into the finances, right? I think this is what everyone in any kind of nonprofit sector is concerned about, especially I think when in religion, where we are dependent upon our donations, quote unquote, come every week. And at least for us, come in a plate. It might be different for you, Rabbi, but I know at the church that our little drives, our fund drives, don't happen annually or biannually. They happen every Sunday. So we pass a plate around where people put checks, they put money. And our church, even though that we have a lot of young families, still prefer the check. They like to come in or write. I don't know if it's a spiritual thing that you can, as you write the check, you're praying over the check, you're praying over God. Thank you for the money. We pray for more. It's your money. I don't know. All I know is that we got a ton of young families and they still prefer the check. They don't want to go online. We've given online options. So we have to start getting savvy about, all right, how are we going to meet people where they're at? Because we're going to start feeling the pinch real quick, right? Real quick. And I worry about churches that don't have an endowment. I worry about churches that don't have some cash saved up. Will they make it through? Will we see at the end of this actually that a bunch of churches had to close because this was the straw. This was the straw that they knew might come, and it came. And maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But there is going to be some major financial strain on folks unless all the congregants from all the different religions are like, no, we're going to go online. I'm going to mail my check in. I'm going to be on time, and I'll give a little bit more because I know there's some extra strain. What have you and your council been talking about this over at the temple?
Well, I mean, I think, ours is a little bit different. Our structure base is not so much based on a week-to-week basis. I mean, our structure is based on an annual fee, an annual donation that is given to the temple.
One time.
There's a set amount that we ask if you are financially able to make a donation to the temple that helps us run our programs and our facilities. You can do a one-time, once a year commitment. You can do semi-annual. You can do month to month. I think in that regard, I think the danger is for somebody to say, well, we're not accessing it. So, and we're in a financial challenge right now.
Well, that's part
and
two.
we
Yes.
can't make that commitment.
Right.
Please know that as a synagogue, and I'm sure as a church community, we're never going to turn our backs on you. We're never going to turn you away. We want you to express and to be part of the community. But as the world works itself, as we know, that it takes financial resources to be able to sustain a community. And I think we're in, for me, I think we're in uncharted territory. I think that we are in very straining times of not knowing how to really proceed. I think for us, and for many churches and synagogues, for some of us who offer preschools and those type of abilities, well, for the parents that have to work from home, and if the preschool is closed because of the situation, well, the money I would be putting in towards that, which is not being offered now, to which I need the money to be able to feed my family, well, which comes first? And I think that there's a lot of challenges with it. I mean, although the governor has said right now that daycares and those type of facilities can remain open, and I know we're having a conversation about it in about 35 minutes to figure out what's the best way to proceed.
Sure.
I think we are in very, very extraordinary times. I don't know.
Does your congregation still, even though people made an annual commitment to the synagogue, do people make payments though? Yeah. Okay. Will people be okay with doing that online? Is there an online portal to do that?
I mean, there is the ability to do so. You can also make a phone call the temple office.
Have you already seen a dip?
Not that I've
seen. It's too early to tell. Yeah,
it's too early.
Yeah. So I think what we're trying to do is trying to really push this idea of we have used a couple online portals. A simple one like PayPal, and then another thing called Faith Street. And then throwing that link up. And what you have to do is actually literally during the live stream service, we've lifted up kind of Facebook curators. So these are like our Facebook greeters who are going to be there on the live stream, whether they're on their YouTube live stream or a Facebook live stream. They're going to be there talking with people and trying to encourage conversation, and then also throwing out that link and saying, hey, everyone, here's the link to give. Here's the link to give, or don't forget to send your check-in. We're going to have to be a little more, I don't want to know aggressive, but a little forthright with giving than we've had them before, because before you just pass the plate. Well, there's no plate to pass. So we're going to have to really push it a little bit more, which we don't like to do in the Episcopal Church. But I think we're going to need to, because how are we going to keep this thing going, right? Especially now with all the technology, there's costs and stuff. We can cut back on some costs. So I worry about, I wonder if, we come from a diocese. So in the Episcopal Church, you have these different dioceses throughout the whole country, right? So the diocese I'm in is Southeast Florida. In Southeast Florida, I'm going to be wrong in this number, but let's say there's 75 churches, right? So there's 75 churches, and then within these 75 churches, there's these small other groups called deaneries. And so in these deaneries, there's usually a handful of churches that are called mission churches, which means they can't pay for their operating budget. So the rest of the church, it's a beautiful thing, says, okay, we're all going to chip in 15% to support these churches that we feel like are really important to be in these areas, because there's not an Episcopal church there, but they don't have the congregation yet or the funding to keep it going. Well, if everyone's hurting and everyone's pennies are being pinched, I get concerned about those mission churches if some of those are going to fold, because everyone is going to be the money, and the diocese is going to be lighter. Endowments are going to be lighter because the stocks are kapooey. So, but is that a good thing? Maybe it was a time for God to say, you know what, you guys need to start combining churches. We don't need all these churches all over the place. Why don't we just come together? And why does this Latino church learn how to work with this Haitian church, or you have the cross-cultural part? Because that's the reason why some of these churches just stay separate, because I don't know what that's going to look like. If we put this white church with this Latino church, is that going to really work? You got to do a bilingual service. Well, maybe God is saying, I see something really beautiful here, and it's going to be there's going to be some growing pains, but let's put your resources together. So these conversations will come if this. I mean, the bishop the other day was saying this is definitely going past Easter. This is definitely probably going into May. So we're going to find out. The presiding bishop of the whole Episcopal Church said the other day, Easter's not happening. You'll have to go live for that. So this is a big deal, man. It's a big deal. So so there's the financial aspect of it, and so that's the last part I want to get into is, of course, where do you? So there's a theological impact of this, and normally I was reading an article in the New York Times saying normally at least from a church perspective. Yes, I do read. The rabbi is looking at me, asking me if I do read off mic. Yes, I do read. Normally, the church is the one who's supposed to be the first one on the scene when something like this happens. So when there was a plague, right, during was it the third century, it was the Christians who were the first ones on the scene and willing to risk their lives and to die, right, because they said this is where we need to be. There's been other moments where it's like they are the first ones. They are Jesus. Big thing was to go and be with the sick, even those who could be disease ridden, right? And so Christians would follow that. But now the Christian thing to do is really, if you want to be responsible, is to go the other way. So it's different, right? You want to be a responsible Christian is not to congregate and not to go to the sick, really to kind of keep your distance because we want to reduce the spread. It's an interesting thing theologically because we're not saying being anti-community, but physically we're being anti-community. But we know so much of God is found in community. Do you think there's going to be a theological impact upon how we commune with one another, how we find God with one another? And are we kidding ourselves to feel like that we can do that digitally?
You know, one of the things that I struggle with, especially now, you know, we've sent out statements, we've sent out materials that effectively say, you know, please be aware that our clergy will not be shaking hands, will not be, you know, hugging and kissing and what have you. When this is all over, does this mean that the culture of how we access our own communities will change? Will we go back to, you know, the shaking of the hands, the hugging, the embracing, the warm part of community? Or are we still going to physically distance ourselves because it's still fresh or it's still raw?
Yeah, but don't you think over time it'll just dissipate?
Will it? Or are we creating a culture now that will that's just the way it is?
No, because history tells us differently.
Sure.
Especially with the AIDS crisis. So yes, people were freaking out, people were staying away, not touching, no one knew a lot. Is it blood? Is it saliva? Is it airborne? And even in the church, it got weird. But I think, I mean, look, that took some time. It's a psychological journey, mm-hmm. And once it dissipates, I think we'll be fine. I do think at the end of the day, people once we get past this and through this, I think there's going to be a surge of just a love of community. Now, but you're right though. That first Sunday back, that first Friday back for you, when we all, for whatever reason, feel it's okay. It'll be a rush of people there. Probably not. It's gonna be like a flower slowly blooming, where it's gonna take a couple months for people to be like, okay, I'll start to go back in person, mm-hmm. And now that I'm back in person, I'll maybe shake a hand, mm-hmm. And then I'll shake a hand, and I'll do a pat on the shoulder, and then we'll get to a hug, right, and then a kiss on both cheeks. I don't know. It's gonna take time for sure. Mm-hmm. People, you know, we've been trained. We're all trying to be smart here. We're all trying to be responsible. So, but how do you feel from a theological standpoint of where? I know for me, I find God in this by saying God is moving us into the 21st century. He's moving his church into the 21st century. What about how we celebrate and how we care for one another and how we love for one another, those who've fallen through the cracks, when we're really constrained in how we can physically do that? You can't go to the person's home. You as a rabbi, when someone tells you I'm going through a crisis, you can say, I'll be right there. Or you talk to someone on your team and saying, I'm sending over a blog, blankety blank blank. You can't, you could. Mm-hmm. But someone in that party might not feel.
Look, with some of the challenges that we're faced with too is in the past we go visit nursing facilities from Port St. Lucie all the way down, south of Hope.
People who are alone, they're isolated.
We celebrate holidays with them, especially we're coming up to Passover pretty soon. We would do visitations of 20, 30, 40 of these rehab facilities. Can't go there now. And I think that pains me immensely.
Can you call?
We can call, but it's because we Jews are not in huge number, so it's a lot of coordinating and a lot of trying to whittle through how we can break through that obstacle that is before us. Yeah, I mean it's.
So we hope the long-term effect there because this show is all about what's the long-term effect and what's this going to look like post-corona. What we need to be concerned about as clergy is that we already know that people suffer from isolation, especially here in Martin County, but that's a worldwide and definitely a U.S. epidemic. Isolation and loneliness and depression. We have to have our ears just perked and peaked and raising up people to be making phone calls and checking with the folks that we know who already were feeling isolated. So people in nursing homes, people in hospital rooms, people just at home who are widows and widowers. And this is where we got to be like, I'm sorry. Yeah, you guys take care of that live stream. I need to raise up a team of people who are going to start phone calling some of these people because they already were feeling alone. And as a faith community, our first priority, I know my vows as a priest, are the marginalized. Are the marginalized, are the poor, or the marginalized, who are those who are left on the outskirts of society. And many, that's just right. You don't have to go far to find that. A lot of times, you don't have to just be in a rough neighborhood to find that, or a poor neighborhood. You can be in Palm City, where there's people very isolated and very alone. And then to encourage, and for anyone who's listening right now, my encouragement to you is to think of all the people right now in your life who are vulnerable, who could also be alone and not receiving the support they normally receive because of the times we live in. And for you to vow that you are going to call them today, you're going to check in with them weekly. You're going to email them. You're going to do whatever you can do to do your part, because that is where this love thy neighbor part comes in. Because there are a lot of people right now who are already feeling the pinch, who are already feeling alone, and who can't go and get up at 5 a.m. over to Publix to be the first ones there to get the chicken and all that stuff. You might need to be the person who gets in line at Target or at whatever and get in line at some of these grocery stores and buy them the food, because they can't. She's 82. She's by herself. She's alone, right? So this is where I hope, okay, so let's say a long-term effect of this is that the love thy neighbor part really becomes very, very vibrant throughout all this. We really need each other, and we have to be there for one another. And we have to really be aware of those who are hurting right now and constantly have those on our head. Who can I call today? Who can I check in with today? Because we need each other. Because just think about the people who are alone right now, sitting by themselves in a room, in a nursing facility. No one's going to come to visit. The person next door is not going to come to visit. They have dementia, doesn't know which way is up or down. And they're just sitting there, right? They need us. It's you. It's me. It's our congregation who's going to call them. So, Rabbi, what is your hope that will come out of all of this? What is your hope for the synagogue, that what God is up to throughout all this?
Look, I think my hope is that as a community that we can weather the storm, that we can come together, but that it will strengthen the bonds of community. That the member who calls somebody that they've never met before to say, I'm just checking in on you.
Yes.
That those form and forge stronger relationships amongst our community and certainly the wider community as well. That's my hope.
Okay.
My hope also is that this ends quickly.
But it doesn't show that's going to happen.
because I think the more that this goes on, the more that it drags on our own livelihood, but beyond that, on our own sense of morale. I mean, it's tough. This is really difficult because, as you said, look, it leads to isolationism. It leads to some bounce of depression. It also leads to that moment of stress. And stress on the body is not good. And with everything else going on in the world, it is weighing so heavily down. I mean, one of the things that if I can bring a positive to it, and I am sorry for some of our listeners that are in other parts of the country where the weather is not 82 degrees here,
right?
But the fact that I have God's expanse where I can go out. Bike riding or go swimming or go for a walk in my neighborhood where it's pleasant, it's nice out, it's beautiful. And I know that others don't have that ability, but I think for us here in South Florida to be able to really, to take that moment to look around and to say, you know what, right now I'm healthy, right now I'm okay. Right now, this is God's creation, and I am grateful and I am thankful. And maybe it is more of a keen awareness of where we are at and of God's creative acts that we are here.
Yeah, but I think we're also going to tap into just the beauty. I mean, the early church were small groups meeting together in people's homes. They couldn't meet in some big, the term church didn't even come into the 2nd century. So those first Christians, they were fearing for their lives. The Romans wanted to kill them. They would meet in these small groups in people's homes. And that was quote unquote church. And it was intimate and it was authentic and it was real. It wasn't big, huge productions. Right. And so this is going to move us back to that. What's really important, families and people meeting together if they feel comfortable in small groups, but definitely families. Mom and dad and the 3 kids now have to be at home. And when's the last time the mom and dad and the 3 kids have been home for a prolonged amount of time, unless it was called vacation? Mm-hmm. Now everyone is so programmed and overprogrammed that I know I got parents in my congregation where she's like, I see my husband, he's like a ship passing in the night. We're just constantly driving this one over to this practice, this one over to that rehearsal, this one over to this tutor. We see each other at night, we slap hands, we give a kiss, and then we go to bed, right? It's just constant movement. So now everyone's home. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a little weird. Mm-hmm. Tensions are going to go rise, but they're going to figure this out. And I think there's going to be great beauty in figuring out the most important system that we have here, the family system of let's get to know each other again.
And I think that also presents other great challenges as well. I mean, right now it seems to be relatively okay because here, obviously in Martin County, our kids are on spring break, right? Next week, when the schools start determining how to do the online learning, right? You know, my daughters had said, Dad, does this mean that I have to sit at home by a computer for 8 hours? Is that what it is? And I said, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's 8 hours, but I think that you'll be instructed via, the internet on your classes and how to keep working at it. But, that presents other challenges. Okay. My kids have to be home. My kids have to be by a device or a computer. I need to be present in some way to be able to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And at the same time, I'm supposed to be doing my work, so it's just, we're navigating through this sea that is murky, that we haven't seen, its way forward yet. I as you said about, families, I mean, look, I have the same situation and same challenge with my own family, which is, most nights my wife comes home late or I come home late. We barely get the chance to see each other. I barely get to see my kids. Now we're kind of forced to spend all this time together, which is wonderful because I haven't seen my kids nor my wife in the last week as much as I have in months, which is great. But it's how do we navigate this? But I think the key is how do we navigate this together? How do we do this as a sacred community or as people that come together to try and bring back some sense of normalcy?
All right. So I don't think we're going to get any sense of normalcy, but let me ask you this, Rabbi, during this time and this new life we're in, because I do think the reading last week for us in church was from Exodus and was from Exodus 17. And it was the 3rd time that the Israelites were complaining about not having water, of threatening to go back to Egypt or wanting to go back to Egypt. And so this here we are. And I think we can't go back to the way life was. Life has changed. So how are we going to grow and innovate into this new way of life, this new way of doing things? So let me ask you this. For you, Rabbi, what is your hope? How do you want to be changed by this movement we're in?
I think for me, one of the challenges and what I'd like to see myself grow is my ability to embrace and successfully accomplish more of our technological advancements.
Yeah.
I struggle with it. I like to think of myself as a people person. I like the interactions, the face-to-face communal aspect. I like the structure. I think now with moving into a digital age, I think that's something that I'm hoping that when this is all said and done, that I have more tools in my resource toolkit.
Yeah, I think for all of us religious leaders is what are the tools you want to grow? How do you want to grow as a leader right now? For me, it is leadership. How I hope I come through this season right now of learning to grow more leaders in our parish who can step up to do the things that need to be done, pastoral care, who can be leading conference calls and video conference calls, who can continue to do formation. Because now we had a simple structure that's set up. You show up and you get a classroom at St. Mary's Episcopal Church, you read the curriculum, you've been formed by us as a leader, but now we were expecting more of you as a leader. If you lead a Bible study, I need you to be the pastoral presence to these people. I need you to learn how to do technology. I need you to be the non-anxious presence in this group. I need you to be checking in on these people and praying for these folks. If you weren't doing it, do it now. So this leadership is for us, it's the Jesus model, right? You get 3 people, you Peter, James, and John. Then you really work on them. You work on the 12. The 12 go out, build 144. The 144 build 100,000. So it's just growth and growth and growth. So that's for me. It's something I've wanted to work on as a leader. That's where I want to grow. And hopefully there's long-term effects here. All right, everybody, listen, we are sending you all lots of love here. And we know that if you and you want, the rabbi and I would love to pray for you and to send love for you. So if you want to reach us on yourfavoritechristian@gmail.com, it used to be a rabbi and a priest @gmail.com, but Google won't let us in. So if you email us at yourfavoritechristian@gmail.com and ask how the rabbi and I can pray for you, if you have questions and concerns, you can always go to our Facebook page. We have a Facebook page of Priest and A Rabbi podcast on Facebook. Leave a comment there. Let us know about your concerns. Let us know about what you think about religion now going through Corona. What's it going to look like? And what shows and topics you want during this time concerning faith, concerning religion. We'd love to interact with you and spread this podcast. You can always go to a podcast, share it with those who are around you. We're on iTunes. We're on Apple Podcasts. You got time now, so might as well listen to a couple of Priest and a Rabbi podcasts and let us know what's going on. And always trust the good sources. There are good sources. Go to the CDC, go to the NIH, but don't trust everything else you're hearing out there. Go to the source to keep your mind right, and then take time off. Take time off. So take time off to just be with family, be with nature, be with God. We love you. We will see you. We'll get through this. Stay positive. Be the light in your community. And we're going to see you here next Friday on A Priest and a Rabbi. God bless you. Shalom.